Mhm. Okay, so we'll start as usual with posture and motivation. So please be comfortable and upright. And thank you for joining on what is both Gandhi Jayanti as well as, I realized today, also Lal Bahadur Shastri, also born on the 2nd of October. So as those of you who regularly attend our sessions, you're aware of the different aspects of the posture and the significance of the upright nature of the posture, which, quite apart from any physiological benefits, it's also represents a sense of confidence. We need a very powerful, healthy self-confidence to properly investigate the path, to investigate, to practice. And after all, in the Mahayana teachings, we say, at least in the beginning, that we're going to take responsibility to benefit others as much as we can, even to not just benefit them, but we're going to generate the awakened consciousness of a fully awakened Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So that's a very great undertaking, obviously, vast. The aspiration is very vast and seemingly impossible. But we strive for that in the Mahayana. So obviously that needs a lot of confidence. And in the posture, therefore, the front of the body is naturally open. So we're exposed to others, to the world. So we are, in a sense, we are proclaiming that we're not going to just be practicing for ourselves, but our purpose is to reach out to all sentient beings, to create that connection with others, with the suffering beings, work with them, help them. And remember the other points of the posture, the arms and the hands, relaxed quality, the slightly tilted head, slightly tilting downwards, relaxation in the muscles of the face, around the eyes, around the jaw, having a firm connection with the cushion or chair. Shoulders level, not pulled back artificially, but also not slumping forwards. And then we recall the motivation, although it has already been hinted at. From the perspective of the Mahayana, and as our teachers used to remind us, if our purpose in life is simply to care for oneself, to find food and shelter and propagate the species and so forth, then there's really, in one sense, not a lot of difference between oneself and animals. Though this may seem a harsh thing to say, animals can't build rockets or atom bombs, or do all the other extraordinary things that humans can do. But point being made there is that human beings have so much more potential to engage in activities that concern not just this life, not just one life. We can create the causes for future happiness, for liberation, even from the suffering cyclic round. And beyond even that, we can create the cause of full enlightenment. We can become fully awakened ourselves, since we can activate the Buddha nature, which we all possess. Although possess is not a great word, but we all can uncover that Buddha nature. So that's our job, you could say. That's our potential. That's what we can do. So the life where we sort of bury our head in the sand like an ostrich, or we shut ourselves off from the difficulties of the world, of beings, that is not considered at all beneficial. So here in the Mahayana, in this way of approaching the spiritual path, we completely dedicate, if we can, we dedicate our energies, our life to the world, to others, to beings who are recognized as not only suffering beings, but beings that want happiness, just like oneself. And most importantly, are beings who are helping us continuously, have helped us, are doing so, and will do so in the future. Sometimes we can be so narrow-minded and sort of self-centered that we fail to notice how pretty much everything we have and enjoy and use and so forth comes due to the effort of other beings, including animals, of course. We forget their contribution because we have this kind of veil of ignorance. We don't see things clearly at all. So we need to recognize how beginninglessly we have been benefited by others, and that even our most precious possession, as it were, our mind, even that, although it doesn't actually come from others, it's been there beginninglessly, still what we do with our mind, how we train it or don't train it, is dependent upon our connections with others. We learn so much from others. We are guided by others. The mind training is really impossible without input from other beings who are wiser and have engaged seriously in on the path. So everything, body and mind, the well-being of our body and mind, depend on others. This is actually a very profound statement, actually. So if everything so much depends on others, their kindness, we say, then how can we neglect others? That's the point. How can we neglect other people in our, often very selfish pursuits or self-centered activities? We'll reflect on this for a while, how much we owe to others and what we feel we could do about that. And of course, this whole process of generating motivation becomes so much more somehow urgent when we reflect on how much others are really in pain, suffering due to so many different causes. And not knowing, you see, how to create causes for lasting happiness, not knowing how to eradicate the deep causes of suffering, having no idea, most people having no idea of the deep causes of suffering, probably thinking that most suffering is caused by external factors alone, other people, this and that. So it's one thing for a person to be suffering, but it is even more pitiable if they have no idea why they're suffering and how to be rid of that suffering. No idea whatsoever. And they have no idea of the extent of the suffering, thinking that short-term pleasures somehow are happiness, all that can be achieved. Of course, one can make this meaningful. I hope one has been doing so by reflecting on, one's own situation and people one knows, the extent of their difficulties, their neurosis, their pain, and how little idea they have, or even no idea, how to get out of the situation. It's like people are stuck. Hmm. I think in order to, really be of any benefit to myself and others, I need not only to generate the very far-reaching, extraordinary, states of mind such as love and compassion and patience and generosity and so forth, uh, allied with wisdom, but I also need to generate a stable mind, because without a stable mind, if my mind is distracted and unable to focus, then I will be unable to deeply engage with the spiritual path, will not be able to strongly ascertain what is to be practiced, what is to be rejected. One will not gain that deep certainty that comes through proper and thorough investigation, and by totally focusing on the points to be practiced. A flickering, unsteady mind cannot get us very far, especially with the practice of wisdom, where we need tremendous focus to generate insight. By focus, meaning attentional stability. So let's mimic that, at least for now, by engaging in some breath awareness practice to stabilize, calm the mind a little bit. So we can bring our attention to the breath, normal breathing. Bringing our focus to the inhalation and exhalation and the sensation produced by that at the tip of our nostrils. When thoughts come, as they will, we recognize, but we let go. We don't follow them. We let them go and come back to the breath with a mind that is relaxed but attentive. And there's a sense of letting go, relaxing with the out breath. Okay, thank you. Now let's return to our text. The great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by the great Lama Tsongkhapa. And we've started the section on actions and consequences, karma, which as Tsongkhapa, as well as the commentator we're looking at is Geshe Lungdup Sopa, who's written a very extensive commentary on the root text. The root text was completed, as I've mentioned before, 1402, and it's still, of course, totally meaningful and appropriate for us today. Some of the examples that Tsongkhapa gives could be changed, of course, to give us a modern feel, but the essential teaching is definitely something that is just as relevant today as ever. And just as Tsongkhapa maintains, this is the graduated path to awakening in the early 15th century, it remains the case today. It's not as though the path to Buddhahood has changed, drastically in any way. We still have to generate great wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness, as it's called. Without that, of course, there is no freedom even from samsara. But to attain Buddhahood, wisdom is not enough. We need the bodhicitta, the great compassion, the wish to benefit all sentient beings and put that into practice. And to develop that amazing state of mind, we need the preliminary stages of the path, a tremendous sense of renunciation, meaning renouncing suffering, the causes of suffering, generating a weariness. Some teachers put it that way. We need to become very weary of samsara. It's like when you see a process which is just so futile and painful, you say, look, what's the point? Just want to give it up. I mean, just a mundane example from my own life, it just came to mind, is when I first went to university. Of course, people used to drink a lot. They still do in England, and of course they did then. And they had what is called staircase parties. Now, the university I was at, there were quadrangles, and there would be 3 or 4 staircases in each quadrangle. And so there would be rooms off the quadrangle. So anyway, staircase party involved people on that staircase organizing a party. But they would invite people from, other parts of the college. It's not like it was exclusively from them. So anyway, I went to one of these very early on. But, people were, of course, behaving in a manner which was unusual for me. And they were vomiting, They were vomiting because they were drinking so much. So there was, vomit on the staircase. And seeing that, I just, I got disgusted and I left. What's the point of staying, being part of that kind of activity? It seemed meaningless to me, and I just left. Plus, I wasn't a beer drinker. So there was a sense of renunciation of staircase parties after that. So, of course, the holy beings, Arya beings, they see pretty much everything we ordinary people are engaged in as not quite like that staircase party necessarily. Well, some things even worse, of course. But when we have an insight into how samsara works, we see how everything, somehow every mundane activity created with a worldly motivation is simply, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like vomit, that would be a bit much to say, but it's like pretty meaningless and essenceless and nothing to, get excited about or get involved with. From Buddhist perspective, nothing that we, or put it this way, nothing we have engaged in so far since beginningless time, because the mind is beginningless, nothing has helped us. Truly, we haven't yet had a deep realization of renunciation, of probably, great compassion. We haven't had deep insight into ultimate truth. Nothing we have done has brought about those kind of realizations, which are essential for totally waking up. Nothing. And, just to count the number of thoughts you have had today or in a lifetime, or the actions or the words we've spoken, in a lifetime. Think of that, beginningless words, beginningless actions, beginningless thoughts, just unbelievable, uncountable numbers of these three actions of body, speech, and mind. And none of them have led to any kind of lasting satisfaction yet. Isn't it extraordinary? Due to the power of ignorance and karma, which we're going to look at more. Due to that, we haven't been able to free ourselves yet, So we have to understand how samsara works. We have to understand how the jail operates, if you like. We're in jail, or you could say we have a sickness. We have to understand the sickness, what the causes of it are, and how to get rid of it, Luckily, samsara is a sickness which it is possible to be rid of through wisdom specifically. And in terms of the sickness, if you like, of self-centeredness, because even nirvana or liberation is considered a little bit selfish or self-centered from the Mahayana perspective, right? Because we're only liberating ourselves. We've done nothing long-term for others. So, to be liberated, to be free of those sicknesses, we need, the great compassion. To be free of just wanting liberation for ourselves, we need great compassion, meaning fully seeing and feeling the suffering of others and wishing them to be free of it and acting in a manner to free them from it, okay? So all of this, you see, the renunciation, all of that, the great compassion, the wisdom, it depends upon seeing things clearly. And one way we see things very clearly is by understanding how karma works, by understanding how our actions have consequences. Because usually in life, if we're honest, we'll see that a lot of things we have said and done and thought, they're mindless in the sense we don't consider them carefully. We don't consider what the consequences are going to be of what we say and do and think. And the Buddha said everything has consequences, and whatever we're experiencing now is a result of former action of body, speech, and mind. So whether we're having pleasant experience or unpleasant experience is due to different karmic causes. So we have to investigate karma very, very carefully, and the varieties of karma, not just the general laws of karma, but the varieties. Because it's like if you have, just mundane example, but if we have a specific task, say we want to go to many different countries, don't just want to go to one country, you want to travel to 7 or 8 or 10 countries, then you need to engage with an Indian passport anyway. Usually you need to engage in many different visa processes. Unless you want to go to, Ecuador or Chile or Bolivia or some countries that don't necessitate a visa. But even there, you have to buy a ticket, right? You have to buy a ticket. There may be many intricate actions we have to engage in to actually get to these countries, So all of that is necessary. We have to create many, many different kind of actions, engage in getting many different tickets and visas and so forth to do all these things that we want to do. Similarly, to make sure that we get this kind of a human life again in the future, we need to engage in specific kinds of actions that have as their result this kind of a human life, which we've spoken about before, with all of these amazing, although difficult, of course, painful, difficult life, but in many ways extraordinary, because we have, all these capabilities to study and practice and, create causes of long-term happiness, which animals can't do. Animals, for example, just behave like animals. They can't engage in, unusual activities based on an understanding of cause and effect. They just do what they do, But we as humans, if we see, for example, in this life, that, okay, I'm kind of a decent sort of person, let's say, I want to help others, but, I don't have the intelligence to know how to help others. I don't have the mental or physical strength. I maybe have a weak, constitution. I can't, work as hard as I would like to for others. I can't do so many things, I have certain fears. I'm not free of fear or anxiety, I'm not very good at, I don't have enough confidence, working with others sometimes. Maybe I don't have a good ear for languages, So then we have to think, what would karma gives us this ability, you could say. It's in our hands to create the cause for what we want to do in the future. So if we want people, and also in this life, let's say we're a decent person, we tell the truth, but people don't believe us. People have doubts about what we say. People don't trust us, So then we have to understand what causes that and what would cause people to, believe us, continue, believe us in the future. What would be the cause for having enough material, sustenance to make sure that one has enough food and clothing and so forth in the future? We do many things for that in this life alone. But what is a deep karmic cause that will ensure we have those circumstances in a future life? Of course, all these teachings are presupposing that the student has begun to get to grips with, continuity of consciousness and the continuing of the consciousness beyond death. This is all of Buddha's teachings are based on that kind of understanding, that there is rebirth, continuity, beginninglessness, and the mind never ends. The consciousness never comes to an end. So then it's very important that the future consciousness has, happy experience, good experience, liberative experience, and even becomes fully enlightened. So the point with karma here is that we can then study, and like a good builder, architect, whatever, we can build our life, our future life, the way we want, by and large. So if we want to have enough resources in the future, then it's a good idea to be generous. That's one of the major causes of having enough in the future, in a future life also, is to be generous. Not to be niggardly and miserly and so forth, but to be giving as much as possible. If we want to have just in general a happy mind, then one of the main causes for that would be to have, very positive thoughts as much as possible towards others, kind thoughts, happy thoughts, positive thoughts, thoughts of rejoicing, let's say, rather than envy and critical thoughts, angry thoughts, they, as we know, actually even short-term create some kind of, misery, we could say. But the long-term effects are also there. So karma is this very important, incredibly important topic, because if we don't watch our karma, how we act with our body and our speech and our mind, or ultimately it's all in the lap of mind, really, isn't it? Then if we don't watch out, we will find ourselves creating all kinds of actions which create, according to experience of the noble beings, create suffering, create misery. So we looked at the general characteristics of karma yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yes, yesterday. And we saw that there are 4 basic general rules governing karmic law. I don't want to pick on anyone today but so the first one is that karma is definite, meaning there is karma. Karma, there are the actions and consequences, and positive actions, wholesome actions, virtuous actions lead to happiness, and non-virtuous actions lead to suffering. The second is that there is magnification of karma. Karma increases. We'll discuss these more today. Karma increases. Third, we do not experience the result unless we create a cause. If you don't create the cause for something, you will not get the result. And if we have created cause for something, then we'll get the result at some point in the future. Unless, of course, in the case of, say we create a very positive action, and then we regret that positive action, that will reduce the good karmic consequence of that action. If we purify our mind through various practices, then negative actions, negative karmas we create can be purified. If we don't purify them, it's like leaving poisonous seeds in the ground, or we should say seeds of poisonous plants in the ground, without uprooting them or burning them or whatever. So karma created will give its result at some point. And we also mentioned, which is why this is a very tricky subject, which also many so-called Buddhists don't fully accept. One thing we have to understand about karma is that it's a deeply hidden phenomena, meaning, as we mentioned last time, certain things are very easy to understand. They are manifest, like something right in front of your face, something you can see. If someone hands you a glass of water, you know that they're handing you a glass of water. That's a very totally manifest phenomena. Certain phenomena are slightly hidden. We say slightly hidden phenomena. And in this category comes even topics as profound as understanding ultimate truth, understanding emptiness, how things exist, meaning that we don't have any independent, inherently existing identity or self. That is slightly hidden only. But deeply hidden is karma. Aspects of karma are deeply hidden because, there's no way for you and I at the moment to understand why we have certain experiences. Or, well, we may in general know or have faith in the fact that painful experiences could come from negative karma, but we don't know the karmas we've created. We don't know why, for example, a very marvelous thing may happen to us in this life just out of the blue, or something very painful may happen to us. We don't know the deep cause. We could go to people and they might give us some explanation. The triggers may be understood, if somebody harms us or shoots us, harms us, injures us, we know the trigger is that person. They harmed us. But what's the deeper cause? Why are we being harmed like this when we are someone who, maybe doesn't even like to harm, anybody, doesn't like to kill a mosquito? So why has this happened to me? only a fully awakened person can really tell you the deeper cause, which is something which has been created a long time in the past, in a previous lifetime, it is said. So obviously we can't understand that because we can't see previous lives. So therefore, this is called deeply hidden phenomenon, you know. And we gave the example of, which is also there in the text, of somebody who may have incredibly, according to most people, very ugly features, not pleasant to look at, but an extraordinarily beautiful voice, which people find exquisite, enchanting. So what's the karmic cause of that? We don't know. All we can say is, well, their parents have certain genetics. It's, this has come about through that. But we don't know the deep cause, why that person has such a beautiful voice or such a not pleasant face to look at, We don't know. But there are causes. Some of it we can begin to understand. I say. I don't know, we don't see our own faces, do we, when we get angry? Because we don't usually get angry at ourselves in a mirror. But we know what people look like when they're angry, right? It's pretty scary. It's pretty nasty, especially if it's a person who regularly gets angry. And we also know that person maybe when they could be very nice and charming. Now, take the example of anger. What do you think happens to a face when it's angry again and again? Upset again and again, irritated, resentful, bitter for long periods. And there are people who have to go through that. So it does something, doesn't it, to the face? So if we take that just as an example of how our emotions, our feelings can definitely affect what we look like, then we might be able to consider how this can also work over lifetimes. It's not just something working in this life. We often see people with very, very beautiful, serene, kind sort of faces. You're naturally drawn to such people, So that also has causes. It doesn't just happen through some accident of, genetics. It's to do with the mind stream of that person, what kind of thoughts and actions and attitudes they had. So anyway, I'm just trying to work around, the beginnings of understanding what karma may be about. But also with that caveat that we're never going to understand it deeply until we become fully awakened. So then what do we do up to now? With a lot of these teachings that we're going to hear, what does Geshe Lundup Sopa say about this? Because he speaks about this in his commentary. Give me a moment, please. As we discuss this subject, Geshe Lundup Sopa writes, you may find that certain ideas make you uncomfortable or are not so easy to follow, and other areas may seem clear and understandable, right? So you should begin by concentrating on those areas that make sense to you and let yourself be influenced by those teachings so that your own behavior comes into harmony with what the Buddha is suggesting. Now, when you come to ideas that are not so comfortable, not easy to understand, or which even seem unbelievable, and beyond your mental scope, the important thing is that you should not automatically deny them. You should leave your mind open. Think that I'm not going to flatly reject these ideas. Maybe eventually I'll understand that. So even when you find statements that are difficult to accept, it's not good to immediately take a negative view. That can be dangerous. You see, from Buddhist perspective, it's very dangerous to deny karma. Because it's like denying that there's a, causality. It's denying that there's a connection between how we behave and what we experience. Or it's a kind of nihilism where you say, it doesn't matter how you behave, because what I'm experiencing now doesn't have any specific cause or reason. It's just chance that I'm happy, chance that I'm unhappy. It's just by chance I'm sick, or, by chance that I'm, such a great athlete, or, leader of a country. It's totally by chance. People, don't respect me, don't speak nicely to me, very often it's just chance. It's their fault. It's not my fault. I mean, I haven't created the cause for that. So that's very dangerous thinking from Buddhist point of view. Obviously, we can understand that, because it will lead us to not care about how we behave. We'll think that it doesn't matter how I behave. It's random. Experience is random. Feelings I have are random. So if I'm feeling very unhappy or get depression, there's some chemical imbalance. There's no deeper cause. It's not based on how I have behaved in the past. So from a Buddhist perspective, this is very dangerous kind of thinking, because it means we then don't take full responsibility and do not then realize that we can also create positive karma, which will then lead to even to Buddhahood, So it's dangerous. It's not good to immediately take a negative view. That can be dangerous. Leave the question open. Take it as a basis for further investigation. So meanwhile, you should base your behavior and your practice on the teachings about karma that make sense to you now. And it may be that, for now we just accept that basically it's a good idea to behave nicely with other people, because they tend to respond positively. When you behave nicely with people, and when you're nasty to them or shout at them or lie to them, it's, it doesn't seem the right way to behave. So we have been born human with the capacity to learn from the instructions of others, and from our own experience and from our own scientific research. Meaning not just scientific research with instruments like in a laboratory, but working with our mind, investigating with the mind. By these means, we're able to discern these processes of cause and effect. And once we gain this discriminating understanding of how things work, we must make a great effort to act accordingly. Human effort can have tremendous power and can make a great difference in the path that our life takes in the future. Of course, none of this is new. This language is not new to us. Probably there's many, what are they called, life coaches. Life coaches are abounding now. There's people who take care of your body, and there's people who take care of your mind and everything. And we have many life coaches and so forth. And it's probably a very good thing. So they will also say things like this, that human effort, you can take your life in your own hands and mold your own future, rather than being miserable and just bowing down to what happens to you and blaming it on fate. Our effort does make a great difference in how our life will evolve, obviously. Yeah, so that's a very important point he's made about not rejecting things, because many people do outright think that it's they just reject it because it goes against what they say is, rationalism, common sense. I'm a humanist, so how can I accept this? Meaning, example, we give courses at our center in Tushita Dharamsala, and so many Israeli people, Israeli boys and girls, I say boys and girls, young people come to the courses. They've been through their army experience, which they have to engage in Israel. So they come out of the army and then they go traveling, and they want to investigate Buddhism as well. And so they come to Tushita. They would come in large numbers 15, 20 years ago. Still quite a few, but in those days, many, many, many. And so when you come to the topic of karma, you have to be very careful, because you see, many of these young people, not their parents, but their grandparents, many of them, or at least great-grandparents, were, died in the Second World War, died in the so-called Holocaust, died in the gas chambers, even some of them. Many died, 4 to 5 million people died, right, that time. So they don't want to hear teachings, obviously, that say there's a cause for that, that's a result of negative karma. They don't want to hear that. They want, obviously, we wouldn't want to hear that. We want to hear that, it's due to the terrible, depravity of the Nazis, that those people died. And in one sense, of course, it's totally correct. Historically, you could say, yeah, of course. Of course, even historically, it's very complicated. But yeah, the main cause is Hitler and his policies and the people who helped him, and the incredible effort the Nazis put into that killing machine. The effective way of getting rid of hundreds of thousands of people. That is the trigger. But what's the deep cause, you see? So you can imagine we had a lot of problems with Israeli students, obviously. So we had to be very careful how we taught this topic. Of course, it's not those people who died in the gas chambers who created the cause. It's the previous continuum of consciousness, maybe hundreds, thousands of lifetimes before, you see. Could have been the major cause for it. But yeah, you can see how it's a very tricky topic. It's like if you're very successful or venerated or reach a very wonderful position in life, then if I say to you, well, that's been caused by something you did many lifetimes ago, you might not agree with it, but it wouldn't sound too bad, But something like the mass suffering that people went through, that, Jewish people went through, that is obviously hard to stomach. But then, you see, if you look at it with a very cool mind, which is, of course, very difficult for people whose grandparents or whatever have died in the Holocaust. But if one were to be able to look at it with a cool mind, then one could say, okay, what's the alternative to the law of karma? Can you think of an alternative? Okay, God wants it. Okay, God wanted it, or some remarkably powerful being, or it's punishment from the Buddha or from God, from something. Or there's no real cause, there's no deep cause for these things, which of course would be the argument of someone who doesn't believe in past lives. So then, of course, the cause cannot be anything other than what happens in this life. But can we think of any really powerful reason, deep reason for why certain people have died like that, and why certain people survived? Like my brother's father-in-law, he survived Auschwitz death camp. He also survived the Warsaw Ghetto, where many Jews died in Poland before before the death camps became so prominent. So why did he survive? Why did so many people he knew die? Why did great sweetheart die in the Holocaust? Why didn't he die? You know, this, from Buddhist perspective, there are deep causes for these things, not just chance. So this is difficult, right? This is a difficult topic. But if the Geshe Lungdup Sopa is suggesting we don't reject what we don't understand immediately because of our bias, the way we think. It is, let's face it, biased in the sense rational bias, so-called rationalist bias, or scientific bias. But maybe scientific, if it were to embrace past and future lives, then scientific would take on another meaning. Yeah. Okay. Any feedback? Let's have some feedback. This is a vast topic. It's going to go on for weeks, maybe. So we can have some discussion now. It's already gone 7:30. Yeah, anybody?
Just a reflection to me. So when we were discussing the karma, so I think yesterday only I was reading when after the Mahabharata war, when Draupadi asked Krishna about why all my children were killed, like all 100 children were killed. At least one could have been left. By all, I should not have died without children. So then Krishna tells to Gandhari, not properly.
Sorry?
The Gandhari, the character.
Gandhari.
Who lost her 100 kids.
Oh, she lost 100 children. Did you say?
In the Mahabharata war.
Yeah.
So then Krishna says that because when you were young, once you were just you were having hot water laid there, and that hot water went inside your sink, and there was an ant which had 100 eggs, and they were killed. And then Gandhari says that it was not my fault, right? I mean, I did not know that. I was young at that time. There was a connection between that act which I did without any conscious thought, and why now? Then Krishna says,
but that was within that life, even
within one. Then Krishna says that action and result. Not even gods can evade the results.
The result of actions.
I was just reflecting on what.
So Yash has mentioned a story from the Mahabharata, which of Gandhari, did you say, who lost 100 children, and Krishna told her the cause, that some hot oil had that she mistakenly allowed to drip somewhere had killed 100, had destroyed 100 eggs of an ant. And that was the reason. So from Buddhist perspective, that's a little bit tricky. Karma is, as we'll see, a full karmic action involves intention. There has to be the intention for a full karmic consequence to occur. There has to be the intention to do something, the intention to lie, the intention to kill, the intention to steal. So if there's no intention, it's like we step on ants every day, right? And that's not good. It's not good karma, but it's not the very bad karma because we didn't intend to, Obviously. If we pluck a flower from a tree, thinking it's just a general public tree, in a park, of course, there could be reasons for not plucking it. You might say it's better to leave it for others to enjoy. But if we didn't know, for example, that actually that tree belonged to somebody, then taking flowers from that tree for our morning puja or whatever, just to decorate our house, would be stealing. But if we don't know it's stealing, if we're not intending to steal, because stealing is taking something that belongs to another, without permission, without their wanting you to. So then that is not the full karmic action of stealing. So I would, a Buddhist view would have trouble with what you just spoke, what the story you told from the Mahabharata. Also, it would be unlikely that the karma would manifest so quickly within one lifetime. But in of course, there are stories which are very strange also in the Buddhist tradition. But yeah, karma is intention. So let's, while we're about it, what constitutes a full karmic action? Let me explain. Let's take the karma of killing. For a full karmic action of killing, which can actually have four results. Let's speak about the four results of karma. We've spoken about the four general characteristics. What would be the four results of a fully maturing karmic action, either positive or negative? Let's take a positive one just for a change. Say we have someone who engages in many actions, deliberately actions of giving, of generosity, of all kinds, giving of material things, of kindness, advice, all sorts of things like that. Let's say we engage in that kind of activity, and we're also generous in the way we help people with our speech and so forth. So that's generosity, right? Say we keep on doing that. The full karmic result of that is, again, we are well-liked, we are generous in the future. But let's go through the full karmic. There are four karmic results, say, of that kind of activity. One, it does have the power to not ensure, but to make it likely that we can have a kind of good human birth in the future, other things being equal. But let's say it gives us a human birth. That is called the fully ripened effect. Okay, especially if that generosity has been also compounded by ethical living and aspirational prayers to have a human life in future, recognizing the benefits of a human life. So you have a human life, but there are three other effects you will experience due to that positive actions of giving and so forth. You will find that, and the one easier to understand is that you will again be someone who finds it easy to be generous. You won't find it easy to be miserly. Okay, so that's not so hard to understand. You behave generously in the past, you have the habit of behaving generously in the future. So that's very good, right? Two, what's the third karmic consequence would be that the experience you have given to others, which is basically happiness, right, through being generous to them, you also experience that. So not only are you continuing to be generous to others, but you experience the generosity and the kindness of others. You get back what you are given to the universe, in a sense, to put it in modern New Age language. You have been kind to people, they're kind to you. You get that back. Fourth effect is what's called the environmental effect. There's also said to be an effect in terms of largely the kind of environment we experience as the human being. So then it would be a harmonious kind of environment, by and large. Doesn't mean we wouldn't ever have problems with our environment, but by and large, environment would sustain us, not be dangerous for us. Because let's face it, a lot of people in this world live in very dangerous places, right? Harmful places where there's violence, where there's starvation, drought, and so forth. So let's take another action, this time the one I usually take, action of killing. So the fully ripened effect of killing karma, when you're deliberately killing, okay, is that you experience hellish kind of rebirth, not human, more hellish kind of rebirth. But say you were to be reborn human, because of other good karma you've created, you are born human, okay, because of some very powerful good karma ripening. There could still be three other effects that are connected with your killing karma, okay? And so you can imagine what one of them is. You don't find it difficult to kill. Some people find it very easy to kill, right? Whether it's small beings or insects or even larger animals. Some people find it easy to kill others, not difficult, It's not such a big deal for some people to kill others, other humans. So you have that habit of killing. Three, you experience injury from others, harm from others, harm or short life or a lot of sickness. That can be the result of killing, that we have all these problems. And the fourth would be environmental effect. So an environment that is not conducive to harmony, happiness, dangerous environment, hostile environment, would be karmic result of killing, even though one's reborn as a human. Because there's plenty of humans in having to experience, very unpleasant situations. Now, what constitutes a full karma of killing or a full karma of generosity? First, there has to be the object. So there's an object that you want to kill. Let's take killing. A person, an insect, whatever. It's clear what you want to do. You're not in some hallucinated state. You're not drunk, You're very clear about, you want to kill something. So then there's the intention, The intention has to be, for it to be the negative karma of killing, the intention has to be one that is connected with a delusion, either ignorance, anger, attachment. So if you want to kill an animal for its fur or its meat, that would be more attachment. If it's out of anger, then it's clear. It's out of hatred, out of anger, So there has to be the intention, obviously. So the object has to be there. The intention has to be there for it to be negative. You see, because there have been instances of killing, but done with a very pure motivation. Of course, it's highly unusual. Ordinary beings cannot really engage in it. But it said the Buddha in a past life killed someone out of great compassion and wisdom, knowing that that person was about to kill other people, a lot of other people. So to save the other people and to save this person from the karma of having killed all those people, he killed the person. He knew there was no other way to stop the person, so he killed them. But with great compassion and without an iota of no aggression whatsoever, pure compassion and wisdom. And it turned out that the karmic consequence of that was positive for that being, for the Buddha to be. But for us, killing is always connected with some kind of aggression. Yeah. You're not doing it to save that other person, from suffering or something. You're doing it for a selfish purpose and often out of aggression. There are other mitigating circumstances like soldiers who don't want to fight and who have to fight and who kill. That's slightly different. There, the intention would be slightly different, and so the karmic consequence is not so harsh. But let's say, someone who's deliberately killing. So we've had the object, we've had the intention. Then there has to be the action. You have to engage in the action of killing. It's not enough to have an object and the intention, obviously. If it stopped there, it would still be negative karma, but not a complete action of killing, obviously, because you haven't killed the person or being. So the third thing is the actual action of killing. So then and then the fourth is the completion of the action, where you realize killing has happened. And the fourth one is important because what can happen is in a fight between two people or whatever, you could harm, you could fatally injure the other person, but they also fatally injure you. And they die of your gunshot or whatever, but you die first from their gunshot, let's say. So you die first, and then later they die. Even if it's just a few seconds later, they die. So in other words, you were not alive when they died, even though it was your bullet or knife that harmed, that killed them, caused their death. So then again, it's terror. It's not a complete action of killing, because how can a dead person kill? That's the logic. The other person has died, but you died first. So there have to be these four things, So if you tell a lie, you have the person, you intend to lie to deceive them, you engage in the lie. But before they understand what you've said and accept your lie and are deceived, you have a heart attack and die, So it's not a complete action of lying. But it's not good. It will certainly leave a stain on your consciousness. But can't be called a complete action of lying. So it can't give the fully ripened result of lying necessarily. So anyway, there's these 4 things have to be borne in mind, and a karmic action, karma, an action can have 4 effects. And obviously the one we can understand the easiest and have to be most careful of is the action similar to the cause, when we keep on behaving in the same way. So that's a very deleterious effect that can go on life after life after life. We can be used to killing, and then of course if due to killing we fall into a lower rebirth, it's unlikely we'll be just born as a cow which just eats grass, basically. We'll be born as an animal that kills to survive, of which there are many. Many animals have to kill and eat to survive, right? So these are all things to take into consideration when we look at karma. The 4 general characteristics, the 4 results of a karmic action, and what constitutes a full karmic action. The intention, the object, the intention, action, and the completion. Yeah. So these are some of the things we can think about. And of course, the 10 unwholesome actions to be avoided, because creating them causes suffering. The 3 of the body, the killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and then 4 of the speech, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip. And 3 of the mind, covetousness, or greedy, craving mind, and then mind of ill will or malice, harmful intent, that kind of mind. And then a mind full of wrong views about karma, wrong views about reality. So these 10 unwholesome actions are basically to be curtailed, and the opposite to be practiced, obviously. So instead of killing, then saving life, preserving life, helping people who are dying or sick or whatever, and so forth. All of the 10 can have their opposites, which create good karma, So sorry, very long. Any feedback? A lot of information there. Yash.
From the Buddhist perspective, can you tell about the act of mercy killing, euthanasia that we...
Yeah, mercy killing, euthanasia. Yeah, on the face of it, it seems very kind. But from Buddhist perspective, it's tricky for the reason that the lamas have given when we ask, because of course that question is asked again and again. Because we don't have clairvoyance, we don't know what will be the result of ending a life prematurely, in a sense. So when we see a being suffering, like let's say our pet dog has been run over by a car and is dying and is in great pain, but the doctor says it's going to take a while for it to die, so we want to put it out of its misery, quite understandably. And it would be considered by most people a very compassionate action to put it out of its pain, out of its misery. But from a Buddhist perspective, it may be better for the animal to suffer as an animal rather than have that suffering cut short and have to experience the suffering later in another incarnation, maybe worse suffering. So it's very tricky, this whole thing about cutting short someone's life. You may have, of course, if you do it with tremendous compassion and mercy, still there can be a negative effect because you don't know what the result is for that being. In the example of the Buddha killing that person, he knew what would happen if he didn't kill that person. And he also, I'm sure, knew where that being's consciousness would go, the one he had killed. So, but in our case, we don't know. All we know is, and of course, looking at a dying animal, sometimes it could be the case that we are trying to put ourselves out of suffering because we don't want to look at it. We don't know how much that being is suffering necessarily. They may be unconscious, but we don't like the look of it, the mangled body, whatever. It's distasteful for us, so we want to put ourselves out of our own misery. There could be that as well. So, yeah, we have to be careful. We don't know. Without clairvoyance, it's very tricky. Mercy killing and all these things. Taking life in all the great traditions is considered a sin, is an unwholesome action. And from Buddhist perspective, from the Buddhist point of view, there's very good reasons for that. Even the mercy killing. Of course, the general thing that is said, of course, is that all beings, cherish their life, don't want to die. So to take life is a very big, worst thing we can do, really. People online, you're very welcome. Still got 5-6 minutes. Did you want to ask anything?
Brain dead people.
Brain dead. Ah.
Tell the patients, family members to donate the organs. It would be good to many people to donate the organs. So in that case, the family goes ahead and gives the consent to for the organ harvesting and organ transplantation. So what kind of karma is generated there? Because
By the family, by saying that their relatives' organs can be donated, but after they die, right? Or while they're still alive, after they die. Brain dead. Yeah. But do they harvest organs when beings are brain dead?
Because they're put on ventilator, so all their organs are working except the brain.
The brain is working, so they're still alive, right?
The brain stops functioning, so all other organs has to be kept functioning by the use of ventilator.
Oh, but you mean the brain is dead?
The brain stem is dead. And so the
Tricky one. Yeah, I'm not.
All the other organs like the breathing and everything is done through ventilator.
So breathing is happening, but the brain is dead. And the heart is what?
Because of the ventilator. So the ventilator
Things can work with the ventilator even though the brain is dead. Is that right? Well, that's new to me. Then I think this is tricky. This is the whole thing is very tricky about organ donation because from Buddhist perspective, even with an ordinary person, the consciousness can remain in the body for up to 3 days after death. Ordinary person, not a yogi. I mean, yogis have said they can, meditate with a very subtle body, subtle mind at the time of total clinical death, totally dead from, modern point of view, but meditating with the most subtle level of consciousness. But even an ordinary person, the subtle consciousness can remain in the body. So they're not totally dead for 2 or 3 days. So if you start harvesting the organs, you see the consciousness can be very disturbed. The person, in a sense, can be very disturbed because they're not yet totally separate from their body and they can know what is happening. So it's very, might be very difficult for the person, terrifying, horrific, possibly. If, start chopping up and taking out livers and hearts and so forth. Yeah. So one has to be careful with that one, I think. If one is, even if one is, completely dead, yeah. Well, if the consciousness has gone, left the body completely, which can happen, especially in maybe traumatic accidents, things like that, maybe the consciousness can depart quicker from the body, then it's okay. But even then, it said in some cases up to 2-3 weeks after death, that means consciousness has left, but it's in the intermediate state and still has some kind of connection with the past life, and can see what's happening. It has clairvoyance. The intermediate state being has clairvoyance. We don't have clairvoyance, but once we die, we do have clairvoyance for a while, real, in the intermediate state. So can see what's happening. That could cause distress, attachment to one's previous body, and to see it being chopped up and so forth might cause some distress to the intermediate state being. But I'm really not qualified to say exactly. What I'm saying now, you have to check. All these things. But if the being who's died had indicated they really do want their organs to be donated, and they have a reasonably calm death, then maybe it's not so difficult for that consciousness, because it's what they wanted. They had the aspiration to donate. So maybe in that case it's not so difficult, not so problematic.
What the family members who give consent?
Yeah, the intention. Again, the intention there is something good, right? Unless it's just to get money, that they're told that they will get a lot of money for. If it's just that kind of thing, then maybe it's tricky. But if they genuinely want to help other people who need the organs, they have a very good motivation, then it's can also be a mixed karma, where there's also good. Some aspects are good, some aspects not so good. Of course, best if one is a yogi and one has ceased attachment to one's body. So then one can just. But then a lot of them just pray to die, not in a hospital, but in a cave somewhere, or just let the animals just come and enjoy my body, dead body, far away from relatives. the yogis pray to die far away from relatives, and wailing and all that. Nobody should know they died. Well, that's difficult, isn't it, for most people to escape the clutches of family to that extent. So, many beings die very unbecoming deaths in hospitals with all kinds of equipment attached to them. What else? Okay, it's gone 8 o'clock. So we should remember, actually, we'll stop here, and I meant to, the body is cremated. Yeah, Dr. Roy is saying. Yeah, it is wrong, according to Buddhists, to cremate the body immediately after death or very soon. Yeah, often it's very disturbing to the consciousness. Yeah, very disturbing. Of course, in hot weather, what are you going to do if you don't have AC or something? Then you want to get rid of the body, It's also considered something kind of unclean, isn't it, I guess? So you just want to get rid of it. So yeah, that is disturbing. That's not great. It was okay in Tibet or Ladakh, where it's cold weather, and a lot of prayers are done over dead bodies very often, for a long time before they are, often traditionally chopped up into pieces and offered to the birds or cremated. But there wasn't much wood in Tibet, certain parts. So the body was chopped up, mixed with barley flour, and offered to the vultures. Vultures that we don't see in India anymore. There used to be a lot of vultures. Now they pretty much died off. From where I sit, yes, we used to have so many vultures near here in my childhood, but now we don't. So yeah, we could briefly remember that there was this person called Mahatma Gandhi, and yeah, if we bothered to actually read his biography or his autobiography, Story of My Experiments with Truth, parts of that, and other works, then we see that he was a very unusual, extraordinary individual in many ways, whose grinning face on our money kind of does him a disservice, I feel. Although he was a Baniya by birth, he kind of transcended, just business. And yeah, we do well to read some of what he wrote. Some of it can be as just, something not like karma, but some things he wrote like Hind Swaraj, or Indian Home Rule, is very powerful and very unusual. Many ideas there would be, we would consider crazy. Modern people would consider crazy, but that's an interesting thing to read, interesting work. Written in 1909. But yeah, his, yeah, I can't say anything without descending into cliche. So best with Gandhiji is best to read what he wrote, and not what they put in newspapers or in airports, because Mumbai airport had a very long quote, or not long quote, short quote, but it wasn't quoted properly. It wasn't quite quoted properly, apparently. And so one should read oneself what he said, what he did. Remarkable, remarkable life, remarkable being. Yeah. Very brave, I think, very courageous person in many ways, very courageous. And a rare person who accepted that he made mistakes, you don't see many people nowadays accepting their mistakes, whether ordinary people or politicians or whatever. You don't see people saying that was a mistake. But Gandhi seemed to have that ability to see at least some of his mistakes and regret them and so forth. Anyway, it's Gandhi Jayanti, so yeah, none of us here probably saw him. My father saw him quite a few times, so one got some personal feedback from my father, who was a socialist, who disagreed with Gandhi on different things, but he had tremendous respect for the man, for what he was, what he did. So anyway, if you have time, you can always Google Gandhi and you'll find some quotes, I'm sure. If you have more time, then do read his works on education, on village industry, on so many things which make so much sense, so much sense in this modern world, which is going, crazy and probably in the wrong direction. So Gandhi is a good corrective. So anyway, we dedicate for all the sentient beings to be more happy than they are now, for us to understand, have more faith in cause and effect, karma, and to act accordingly, so we can create the cause for lasting happiness, liberation, and enlightenment. May that happen. May our teachers have long and healthy lives. May we never be separated from authentic Dharma in this and future lives. May the teachings last for a very, very long time in this part of the universe. May those who are sick or who are awaiting treatment, like Sumit, Prasad, and those who have died, Chandraprabhaji, Pradeep Magazine's mother-in-law, all these beings to have a good future, good success, and to meet with, always be connected with Dharma. May we quickly generate love and compassion and wisdom realizing emptiness, so that we can be of more benefit for others. And we should rejoice in those beings who are actually benefiting others in their actions, not just their words. We rejoice in their good activities. May all their work to benefit others be successful. We could also work, dedicate that world leaders act less from fear and insecurity and aggression, and more from a position of trust and kindness, seeing seeing the interdependence of all of us, and the importance of peace and harmony. Internationally here, we're speaking. May all our great teachers, like His Holiness, have long and healthy life, all their wishes to be fulfilled. And may there be a quick return of Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, his reincarnation, to appear very soon and to benefit students as much as possible. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening. And yeah, tomorrow we have Medicine Buddha practice, Healing Buddha practice, 6:30.